your end, I'm afraid, because I'm hoping everyone else can hear me because we've done a quick test run. Um, so sorry, yeah, chat's available. Put your hand up if you want to speak at any point in the meeting. We are recording. We will be doing a little test vote in a minute to get you used to the Zoom way of voting so you can figure out how to do it before we go to the real business. Um, and other than that, I'm assuming from a technical point of view, everyone is happy to begin. We will follow a fairly formal agenda because it is an AGM, it's the league AGM, um, and we'll see how we go for time and whether any questions, etc., come up as we go. So, if we're happy, I think let's go to our first slide, please, folks. I won't ask everyone in the room to introduce themselves, but just so you're aware, in terms of who is in the room from Squash Wales and the board, we've got myself as chair. You can go to the next slide, please, Nick. Phil Brayley, who most of you will probably know, liaison director, who sits on the board. Dave Evans, director of performance participation. Nick Edwards, who I'm sure you definitely know as league manager and will be doing most of the talking after me. Thomas Ross, Tom should be in the room as well, who you will have had contact with through the club network, and Russell, who will be doing lots of work in the background around the polls and running the meeting, etc. So thank you all for being here. And of course, thank you all for your time this evening. Couple other bits before we get into the agenda. You'll be aware you get 5 points for being here as a club member or as a representative of your club. So well done if you've just gained 5 points for next season. We will just pause for a moment to take any apologies that we've had either from you, Nick, if you've got them, or Russell. I'm not sure who's collated them.
I received no apologies for this
No
meeting.
one. Okay. Russell, no one
Only Marco Perna,
from.
UHW, but
Okay.
he's been replaced by Reece Jeffries.
No problem. That's fine. Thank you. Just as a matter of business, we haven't received any additional motions and we've not received any AOBs in advance. So those parts of the meeting will be relatively swift. Um, as I mentioned, it's one club, one vote in the AGM and the league AGM. So what we are going to move to now is a test vote. The way this works in the league AGM, and don't worry, a poll will pop up very shortly. One vote, one club. Russell will be checking to make sure that if you are attending and there are two of you from a club, that only one of you votes. So please make sure you've agreed that in advance if you haven't done that already. There are a few duplicate clubs in the room. In terms of how voting works, it is a simple majority for all league matters. Um, abstaining from vote does not count as a no vote. At the moment, Russell, I'm just going to check with you. How many votes have we got in the room? If you might be on mute, Russell, if you're trying to tell me, or you may be adding them up. Apologies, coming to you quicker than you expected. This will go quicker normally, folks. We just need to count up how many clubs are represented in the room so we know how many votes we've got so we can work out what a majority is.
Hi, Richard. It's 40 at the moment. There's still people
40.
coming in, but
Okay.
at the minute it's 40.
All right. So for now, it's 40. We will check back in again when we vote later. So right now, the majority would be 21. Okay. So without further ado, and to give you a chance to, go back and go where you were. There you go. Thanks, Nick. Just to give you a chance to get used to voting on Zoom, what you will see in a moment is a poll pop up on that very simple question that squash should be made compulsory for all skilled children from the age of 2. Please cast your vote when you're ready and you see the poll. Thank you, Russell. I will give you about 30 seconds to do this, which will seem an eternity if you've already done it, but we will just give people a chance to find out where that's popped up on their device and hopefully cast their vote. Right, I think let's close the poll then, Russell, if you'd like to pop up the results. Okay, so if you voted successfully, you should be able to see. It does it as a percentage for us. Actually, that's even easier than counting the numbers. Then you will see there we've got a 68% majority in this case for that vote, which is great. So thank you for that. Hopefully that has proved useful, and at least you know how it works for the latter part of the meeting. Okay, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the minutes of the last AGM. We're not going to go through them line by line, but I will pause here if anybody wishes to raise any issues from them. They were distributed to all members, but I'll pause there if there's any particular questions. If not, this is just a quick recap of the actions that were in those minutes. Discount squash balls are available to all clubs, so please get in contact with the office if you wish to partake in that offer. That was something that was brought up. League committee was updated, which we'll come on to later, so there's some potential more changes there too for this year. All the updated rule amends went into the current league rules. There was a discussion, if you were here last year, you remember there was a discussion about a restructure. It was defeated, but there is some ongoing discussion, and we'll potentially come back to that later. Nick will give a bit of an update. And obviously winter and spring have been completed. Everything else is as per the minutes. So I'll pause again as anyone wishes to vehemently disagree with any of those. If not, we shall move on, and I'm going to hand over at this point to Nick and the league committee.
Thank you, Richard. Welcome, everyone. As you know, the League Committee has been in place for a number of years now, and its main role is shown on the screen, basically to help me with the operation and delivery of the leagues, ensuring fair and competitive sport squash is used throughout. It also acts as a sounding board, and it helps adjudicate on referrals from clubs on sanctions imposed due to rule breaches. The league committee is made up of two permanent members, myself as league manager and a member of the board, which is Phil Braley, and up to 7 other league committee members. The current league committee is shown there. Arwell Jones from Carnarvon, Mel Davis, Llandaff, Richard Drinkwater, Newport, Slag Davis, Maesteg, Pat Westlake, or Penarthins. David Robertson from Cowbridge has stepped down due to previous commitments, but I do thank David for all the input that he made into the league committee while he was a member. We did co-opt Nick Dyer on from Meads and Milford Haven on an ex-officio basis. Nick Dyer has been a member of the league committee for the last 3-4 meetings and has been an invaluable input. And I'm very pleased to say that Nick would like to become a permanent member of that league committee. So I say we allowed up to 7 members. We only have 6. So I'm going to hand back to Richard just to confirm that the current committee will continue to as on the screen.
Thank you, Nick. Although this is called an election, the fact we have 6 members, 1 stepping down, we have 2 posts, 1 person, 1 nominee. We will make this will be by acclamation. Therefore, that person will be duly elected. That is how the process of the election works. There's no competition required. So unless anyone wants to say anything from the floor, I would propose that that's the way we move forward. And I would just reiterate your thanks as well to those people who've put in their time, and yourself and Phil for chairing and running that group. And I think the lack of requirement for the league panel to meet is probably testament to the fact that you've run a very smooth operation for the last couple of seasons. So thank you for that from my point of view as well. So I think there's nothing in the chat, nothing from anyone. I can't see hands up, so we'll continue. Thank you and welcome officially, Nick. Thank you for if you're in the room, thank you for joining that for the last few months, and welcome aboard officially.
Good.
Okay, let's move on, Nick, to the constitutional rules.
Okay, thanks, Richard. Yes, league constitutional rules. As you know, it has been updated to better reflect the current situation. All clubs have been involved with this. They've had an opportunity of putting forward suggestions or amendments. We have had a number of further suggestions for change to the rules. These have been discussed by the league committee, and as I said, those have been sent out to all clubs. So there shouldn't be anything that no one hasn't seen this evening, because all clubs have been involved in this over the last number of months. So we have had a few changes proposed to the rules, and those are listed there. As I say, all these have been sent out to the clubs already, so there should be no sort of nothing new in any of this. But I will very briefly run through what the changes are, with a brief rationale for why those changes have been proposed and what the benefit they will bring. So the first one would be Rule 5.4, which 5.4a hasn't changed. That's exactly the same as it was before. The additional piece is that as well as players playing in merit order, the teams must play in merit order as well. So if you have a B team and a C team, the B team cannot play in the league lower than the C team. The rationale for this is basically it removes the problematic and confusion that comes when you're dragging players out from a lower team that actually plays in a higher league. It gets very, very complicated. So in situations where you do have a B team that is below a C team, those teams will need to be renamed, and the higher team will need to have the higher ranked players. The only exception to that would be Rule 7.10, but I will come on to that in a moment. So that's the addition to the Rule 5.4. The next one was on 5.10 for Premiership. Again, this basically just blocked a small loophole, really, that you can only call up players into Premier teams from lower teams if they have been ranked for a period of time. But it's not just the top five, it's anything ranked below six in a team can also not be called up. So it basically just removes that loophole. It also removes the inconsistency between the 4 week and the 5 week period between Premier and lower leagues. And it also means it's now called Period 2, and that makes things very clear that all leagues now have the same start date and the same end date, so all have the same mid-season point. So Premier 2 is the same for everyone. So that just basically blocks a loophole about teams bringing in players late in the season, ranking them six or below, and then calling them up for the last 3 games of the season. The next change that was proposed was for Rule 5.11, and this is for teams below the Premiership. So this includes all of the already Pembrokeshire, North East Wales, plus all of the feeder leagues, including Feeder 1. And the change here is that we're basically getting rid of rules 5.12 and 5.13, and the new proposal is that players ranked in teams below the Premiership League must be ranked in a team prior to the end of Period 1 to be eligible to play in the last 3 games. This also gives clubs a little more flexibility on how they use players, but it still prevents new players being brought in at the last minute to gain an unfair advantage for those last 3 games of the season. Because we've now aligned everything below Premiership, rules 5.12 about medical evidence and 5.13 are no longer required. So they all get merged into a new rule 5.11. The next change that was proposed was Rule 7.1a, and again, this is rules been in place the last few seasons concerning players' squash levels and how they are ranked within the teams. No changes, but one addition is that if you are ranked or want to be ranked within League Master, you do need to make your squash level available. The rationale for this is that some players were hiding their squash level score, which meant that it was difficult, to ascertain whether they were being ranked appropriately or not, and also give a disadvantage to opposition players playing them. Because if you don't know what the squash level is of the player about to play, it makes it more difficult for you to prepare for that match. So the addition to this rule is that the squash level score must be visible in the squash levels if you are going to be ranked within League Master. The next change to the rules was actually Rule 7.3 and what was Rule 5.13. There was a conflict here, and it was decided that we would get rid of Rule 7.3. Originally, 7.3 said that if a player was injured, for example, you didn't rank them in your rankings until they were actually back fully fit and ready to play. That was actually in contradiction to Rule 5.13 that said if you rank a player early on and they've been ranked since the start of Period 1, they are allowed to play in the last 3 of the season. So it was decided that getting rid of 7.3 was the way forward. It removes the conflict and it gives clubs a little more flexibility, which I think is good. The other rule that we changed was Rule 7.7. This was concerning changing the ranking order. Again, there was some confusion between leagues of 7 and 8 and leagues of 5 and 6 because they had different mid-season points. So what we decided to do was to start we have done the last few seasons, we start all leagues on the same date and they all end on the same date, and they have the same mid-season point. So the rule now simply says once the season started, a team may not change their ranking order until Period 1. As an aside, we do still have Rule 7.8, and if clubs want to make changes outside of this, this can be done, but the rationale needs to be presented to the league committee, and they will make a decision on whether that should be allowed or not. The next rule that was changed was 7.10. Again, this was about plays in ranking order. This came about after some consultation with some clubs who were fairly dissatisfied with the way this was working, and the rule has been changed to try and make sure the 7.10 is used appropriately. The new wording is there, and the new part is that the league committee will review all requests for out of order playing and will only give exception with competitive squash is not compromised and it is a truly exceptional circumstance. So 7.10 is in existence, but it will be used a little more, let's say, strictly, for want of a better word. Again, as per usual, any player who is ranked lower than they should be, then they will not be allowed to play for higher teams. Rule 11.10 was the other change. Again, the only new part here is for concerning walkovers. It was very clear about having a walkover if the entire team didn't turn up. But if you have a club where there are two teams from within the same club and there is a walkover, that applies at a string level as well. And again, the rationale behind this was it prevents clubs from how do we say manipulating results just because the two teams are from the same club. So if the two teams from the same club and one of the strings doesn't play, no points are awarded to either side for that particular string. And finally, there is a new rule to be added. And this, again, is just to block a loophole. As you know, players who are ineligible playing the last 3 games of the season, at the moment, there's nothing to say they can't be used in annual championships, premiership, end of season playoffs, or any other games that determine promotions and regulations. So to block that loophole, we've introduced this rule that says if you're ineligible to play in the last 3 games of the season, you are also ineligible to play for any promotion or relegation matches post-season. And again, I think that that makes a lot of sense. So that was, if you like, a whistle-stop tour of the changes. As I said, there shouldn't be anything new there to anyone. That's been sent out a number of weeks or even months in advance. I've had no feedback to the contrary, so I'm assuming that people are happy with those rules. So I will hand back to Richard now to adopt those rules formally.
Okay, just before we do that, we will pause for a minute because there's a lot in there, and it's good to see some rules coming out actually and trying to simplify things. That's always a good sign. But I will pause there and open the floor for any questions, comments, or otherwise. And thank you for getting those out to everyone well in advance. So hopefully people have had a chance to digest them. But I will pause just, I haven't seen anything yet. If any of my colleagues have spotted hands, please shout.
Alex Rowland's got his hand up, Richard.
Oh, right. Okay, go on, Alex. Unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, cheers. Yeah, all seem pretty logical, and yeah, well done on getting them sorted. My only thing's around, when you are getting an exception to, I think it was 7.10, wasn't it? To try and play someone lower. There are a couple of instances in our club where it's either a junior that should play higher, and often their level isn't, correct as per their actual ability. And then the other options are like when someone's been out for 4 or 5 years, injured, they come back, they're never going to reach that level again. I just want to know what sort of rationale we have to put in order for that to be seen and actually approved amongst the committee, because it seems quite difficult right now to get that.
I'm happy to pick that one up. Yeah, it is a fair point, Alex. But if somebody's coming back and they're coming back from injury, they should be fully fit to play before they play in league squash. If they're not, then they're putting themselves in danger and may well be negating insurance.
My example I would use would be, we all know Jason Foster. So he's said he might come back now coming into the new season. He's had 2 hip surgeries over the last 6 years. He wants to come back. His squash level is about 5.5K. He's never going to reach that level again. His level hasn't reflected that. It's just how does that get through the committee, basically?
Nick, is it a 7.8 exception? There is a rule, isn't there, that obviously allows you to make exactly the case you just made, Alex, which sounds reasonable to the league committee to say, look, what do we do with this person? I mean, yes, we have to share a little bit of detail and be grown up about it, but Yeah, my view would be you would try and make a sensible determination, wouldn't you, of a level? Is that fair, Nick? In terms of what
Yes,
you're doing?
yeah, I say that was very fair. But as I say, if somebody is injured, they do need to play, get themselves fit enough to be on court if they are going to play league squash. I mean, if they play in box leagues or some other social games, that those results will be reflected in their squash level. And if they do start playing at a level that shows they're not as good as they were, that squash level will go down. So may take a little while, but it is going to come down over time.
Okay. Right. So anyway, I think the answer to the question, actually, there is a mechanism for dealing with those fringe cases, shall we say? And I think the league panel league committee is of a view of let's try and make sensible decisions there for someone like that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Right, there's a couple other bits. We've got a question from Adrian Brace. Clarification 11.2. Does this only apply to the whole match walkover, not the individual rubber walkover, e.g., 5 players on one team, 4 players on the other?
Right, well, that's exactly what it applies to. If you have two teams from the same club and there are 5 players in one team and only 4 in the other, that fifth string would have no points associated for either side.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That was the example you gave in the wording, but I'm not sure it was reflected in the actual wording that was proposed. So it might. I don't know. Is it really clarifying that because it describes a whole match walkover and not a individual rubber walkover? So you might want to just adjust the wording unless I've missed the full wording.
Well, as I say, I've put the rule back up on the screen. The top part of the rule does refer to the match itself, which has done all the time. The only new bit is the point that says any strings that are walkovers where both teams are on the same club, there'll be no points awarded for either team.
Right, okay, so that makes sense. So that basically the bit with the bullet is the new bit that's going in the
That's
rule.
the new bit that's going in, yes,
which
exactly.
is what Adrian's referring to. So that makes sense. And when you read it in that context, is that okay, Adrian?
Yeah, no, fully understood that
Okay.
one.
No, fair question.
There was another one. So with regards to the exceptions that people may apply for and have awarded, is it worth publishing that list of exceptions? Not the reasons for, but just the list of people who are playing out of order so that you get less kind of
No, I
questions and
don't think
queries
we
in?
can publicly do that because you never know what the reasons are.
We do, Richard.
Well, do we publish it or do we?
Yeah, it's on the Squash Wales website.
Okay, yeah, I didn't mean the reasons. I just mean the list of who has been deemed to play.
They're on there, Adrian. If you go on the Squash Wales website, you'll find them.
Okay, thank you,
That's
Phil.
great.
I didn't know that. Dylan, you've patiently got your hand up. Go for it.
Cheers, guys. It's just, again, 11.2. We obviously play in quite a smaller league than you guys up in Eryri here. And we don't do it to manipulate it. You kind of see where the rules in to stop any sort of manipulation. But last season, there was clear data to show that our second team couldn't really get teams together. And when it came to them not being able to get a team to play against us, we got docked the points. So I'm just wondering where there's a sort of clear sort of data trail to sort of back up the fact that we're not manipulating it and that it's happening. You know, other teams are benefiting from a 19-point walkover where we weren't, sort of thing. I'm just wondering, Nick, is it worth putting a caveat or sort of like an addition to that rule to say that, you know, we're in where we can sort of prove it with league data that, you know, we might not apply that rule? Or do you think maybe we should have that discussion locally as a league?
I'm not quite sure what you are proposing there. To be fair, Dylan, are you saying that the rules shouldn't apply, or
no?
I'm not quite sure what you're saying.
I'm saying if you know, like last season with I'm not sure if you remember, but Llanrwst 2 couldn't get a team against Llanrwst 1, but they couldn't get a team against like 3 or 4 other teams either. So that those other teams, they got the walkover, but then Llanrwst 1 didn't get the same walkover that the other teams did, and ultimately sort of cost us the league. And it wasn't a case of us manipulating it at all, because you could see there was a clear sort of pattern of just our second team not being able to get a team. So you could see that there was no manipulation doing it because it was proof. So what I'm asking is where we can prove that there's no manipulation going on and that there are a string of losses due to a walkover. Can we forego that rule with your sort of sign off?
Oh, well, I'd have to give that some thought, and I would be happy to discuss it with you. But my feeling is that if the team is failing to fulfil that many fixtures, should that team really be withdrawn until the club can actually fill the required number of teams?
Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah, I see the advantage of it as well. It does make you sort of want to start getting the team together a bit more. We were struggling big time last season, but looks a bit better this season. But yeah, maybe I'll discuss it with you another time then. But yeah,
You also in Rary have the other ability of calling players down from higher teams to lower teams, so
yeah, we
that
didn't have
might.
it. We didn't have any players. We had, like, yeah,
But that does make it more difficult, I have to say.
yeah. Anyway, we'll leave it there. Sorry to bother everyone
No,
with that one.
no, that's fine. That's okay.
Bye.
There's it's a comment, perhaps more. Hang on, there's a concern. Let me read this. It's from the chat. Ben Penfold. Um, is there any concern around creating a barrier to entry on playing team squash by forcing someone to sign up to squash levels? Some individuals may not wish to sign up to this, and under this rule means they cannot play team squash. Team squash is supposed to be, sorry, got to move my thing. It would be fun. Some people don't want the added pressure of squash levels can bring. I understand the premise of the rule, just wondering whether we've considered the above and whether it actually may lower the player engagement. Nick or Phil or Dave, do you want to have a view on that first?
I'm
Well,
happy to pick it up if necessary.
Go on.
Yeah, we have considered it. In the past, it's been two individuals. I know at least one of them was playing Premier Squash. It was our view that, there was no reason why these numbers shouldn't be displayed, and it was agreed that everybody should have their squash levels available. A lot of players will want to know where their squash levels are. They will want to know where their opponent's squash levels are. They will want to know what's going to happen when they play them. They're going to want to know what's the result of them playing them, whether they win or lose. So there's quite a bit of interest across the board for
Oh,
all of us. We could see no justifiable reason not to put it in there. If somebody came to us and said, "Look, I'm not going to play team squash unless I can hide my squash levels," that may be a different story, and the league committee could decide whether or not that was justified. But at the moment, we can see no justification for it. It's certainly not a barrier to play in from what we've seen. So that's why the rule was inserted.
okay. Ben, if you want to unmute and come back on that, please do. Or if anyone else wants to, well, there you go. Dave Coates just said, from the experience of Merthyr squash levels had a positive impact. Yeah, I could see both sides to that. I think if you're putting yourself out to play team squash, there's a certain amount of pressure just by turning up in a team match. So, okay, fine. If there's nothing else, and I know there's a thumbs up as well for David. So, okay, what I'm proposing, folks, is rather than go through these league rules one by one and vote on them one by one, I'm not hearing huge issues around them. So we're going to do them as one vote to start with. If that is a no, then we'll go back through them one by one. So first motion is going to be, or first vote is going to be to accept all of the rules changes as presented by Nick, and we'll open the poll when you're ready, Russell. We've got another 10 seconds. Okay, close the poll, Russell, if you wouldn't mind, and pop the results on the screen. Oh, okay, that's pretty unanimous. Okay, folks, thank you for that. Much appreciated. Well, congratulations to Nick, I think, and the league committee for doing the background work on that. I think take on board a couple of comments there around 11.2, see how that goes. But thank you, everyone, for casting your votes. With just so everyone saw it who may not have seen that, it was 100% in favour. So that moves us swiftly along then to league structure update, Nick, and I think it's back to you.
I think league structure is Dave, actually.
Dave, actually, oh, sorry,
Oh,
apologies. You're
that's,
right. Quite right. It is Dave. Go for it,
that's
Dave.
okay. Thanks all. Not nothing sort of drastic happening there. Just as Squash Wales, we're always looking at the leagues and how they sort of how they're running. Any issues we have, just to continually evolve the leagues to make sure they're working for everyone. There's a lot of challenges in the league at present, but we've been sort of seeing a lot of challenges in the West and Gwent regions, with teams as sort of in Eryri actually, where teams cannot fill complement of players playing in matches. They're struggling with travel distances, and limited competitions. So what Squash Wales is looking to do, as it says, on the slide, there's no change to the winter leagues. As we're starting, they're going to proceed as the existing structure. But during the season, Squash Wales will, excuse me, have consultation with our clubs and our members and get a full, more detailed idea of what the feelings are and how ideas, before we will then look to put some sort of proposals together, following the feedback, that'll be approved by the board, and then we'll present then to you guys, the members, to vote on, to sort of implement in 2026. So this season is going to be more about, we know there's issues, we know there's challenges, and we want to speak to you guys to find out, there's probably not one hat fits all, but to look to see how we can improve the leagues, and then come up with some proposals that we'll put for voting, moving forward. Back to you, Nick. Unless there's any,
Pause there for any questions.
There's sort of the questions people are thinking. There's more comments really, because it's more we're going to be asking the questions this year to get the actual feedback from everyone.
Yeah, and Dave, am I right in thinking we're going to do this as kind of a few town hall type sessions so people can throw everything in the ring and we'll have debate about them?
Yeah, we just want as much feedback as possible from a variety of the clubs.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll draw that together. If there's something we want to change, we'll draw it together as an EGM at some point towards the end of this year. So then it may be that we end up with status quo. That's kind of option one, isn't it? And we'll leave as it is, but we want to just open the conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll pause unless anyone's got any vehement or strong views they want to give to Dave right now on the structure of the leagues. If not, hold your thoughts. You will get a chance to send them in or talk about them or through some other means in the very near future. Okay, let's move on then to winter structure 2025, Nick.
Okay, thank you, Richard, and thank you, Dave. Yes, as you just heard, the Winter 25 will be in the same format as other leagues and in line with the LCR. I have applied the promotion and relegations rules as stated in the LCR, and I've obviously had to make some minor changes where leagues became imbalanced to ensure that we do have a more balanced and competitive squash. We do have a few new teams joining us for the winter. Rubina are putting in a 9th team, Rubina I. Cardiff are putting in their 7th team, Cardiff G, and Risker D in Risker putting in D in East Central. We have unfortunately had 1 or 2 withdrawals for the winter. Torvain are unable to put a side in for the winter. Bridgend have decided that they will go with 3 rather than 4. Cardiff University, most of their University A players and some of their Bs have now left university, which means that the standard of the team is not as high as it was. So basically, Cardiff Uni A have in effect withdrawn. They would have been in South Central 2, but the Cardiff Uni B will be renamed Cardiff Uni A, and they will be in South Central 3. So that should maintain the competitive nature of squash within Cardiff Uni. Llanyssion D have decided to withdraw, and Mould up in North East Wales decided they can't put a team in for the winter, but we're hoping to have them back for spring 2026. All of the league structures have already been sent out to all the clubs, so you should know which league each of your teams is playing in. And we have a total of 133 teams moving into winter 2025 as we speak.
I think it may be 135 because there's apparently 2 new teams in Eryri as well. Nalgo 3s and Bangor Uni 1. Thank you, Dylan. So I'm hoping you know that, Nick.
Well, Bangor Uni 1 was already in the mix as far as I'm aware.
And Nalgo 3, Nalgo Vets.
Nalgo Vets 3. I wasn't aware of that one, so yes, we may well have a Nalgo Vets.
Gained one out of the meeting.
Let's move on before we get any more, shall we?
Okay.
Okay, so as I say, all the league structures have been sent out, so there should be no surprises there. So what needs to happen before the winter 2025 can commence? Well, the season will start on the week commencing Monday, the 8th of September, and the final games need to be completed before Friday, the 12th of December. I wouldn't want to see that extend any further because that does put pressure on then in getting the spring leagues in place in time if the results for the winter ones aren't available. So the season will start on the Monday, the 8th of September, or week commencing Monday, 8th of September. I will aim to have the fixtures published in League Master no later than Monday, the 25th of August. And this then gives clubs at least 2 weeks for court bookings. I know some clubs are under pressure, particularly if they use leisure centre facilities. They need to know when the dates are. So I will commit to get those fixtures out to you by the 25th of August to give you that 2 week period. For that to happen, however, I do need to know your final home nights and start times before Monday, the 18th of August. This then gives me a week to sort the fixes out, to liaise with the league master, to run a few dry runs, make sure there's no clashes, make sure all the leagues look right. And I do need time to do that. So I will need from clubs their final home nights, obviously numbers of teams, and start times before Monday, the 18th of August. The ranking lists will need to be in place, obviously, before the season starts. It usually takes me about a week to get all those names into League Master. As I say, with 130 plus teams, we're talking probably 1,000 players, I would have thought, and it does take a little while for me to do that. So I will need your ranking lists before the 1st of September to give you a week to put them in, and I will commit to you to get you the list of squash levels for your players by Monday, the 25th of August. So you've got a week to double check the players that you're putting in your rank order do actually meet our squash level criteria and the 20% variance. We'll use that data then, the Monday, the 25th of August, as the benchmark squash level for the winter season, and that will be what the rankings will be based on. One other thing, if you could let me know who your captains are likely to be as well as soon as possible, that will help me when in my communications that I am talking to the right people if I have to query things about any of the new teams. So all being well, the winter will start smoothly, and we will take things from there.
Thank you very much.
Happy to take any questions before I hand back to Richard.
Okay. I can't see any hands up. Thank you, Nick, and thank you again for your work on getting the logistics of this up and running, because I know it's no mean feat.
Thank you, Richard.
We move the final slide, AOB. We haven't had any in advance, so as far as I'm concerned, there is none. But a date for your diary, we'll let you know now. This meeting will happen on Wednesday, July the 1st, 2026. So that if you're really keen, put it in your diary now. Hopefully we will be equally swift next year. And I will therefore formally close the league AGM at this point. Just really for members' benefit, we will just hang on for a minute. We've done the formal business of the meeting. If anyone wants to ask anything slightly more unofficial or informal or guidance or otherwise, I'm happy to take any questions from the floor or in the chat now. And I'll just pause for a minute there if you want to be brave and put something in. Thought this was starting at 8 p.m. Very sorry, Paddy. If not, it's fair. Okay. Right. I think that's probably answered the question. There's nothing particularly pertinent coming through in the chat. For those of you that live in Cardiff, good luck getting around town when that's happening. If not, then folks, thank you very much for your time this evening. It's greatly appreciated, and thanks to all those involved in keeping things running smoothly. And we will look forward to the winter season. Thank you, folks, and good luck. And we'll close the meeting there. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Bye, everyone.
Cheers, guys. Thanks a lot.
Cheers all. Bye.